Hi, my name is Lyova. I also go by Lova for English speakers, it's easier to pronounce. I'm an Armenian American. I'm Armenian by heritage, and I was born in America and I hold American nationality. Parents are immigrants. This is going to be a difficult video for me to make. I've never made a video before, so you're gonna have to bear with me here. I don't really have any sort of script or anything for this. I have points, stuff I want to talk about, but nothing rehearsed at all. So for those of you who don't know, right now in Nagorno-Karabakh, also known as Artsakh by the Armenians as it is known since that's its ancient name, the Armenian people living there and in Armenia are under attack. War is being waged against them by Azerbaijan and Turkey. Obviously, Turkey's only involved on the side, giving Azerbaijan arms. They are also being armed by persons from Syria. I don't know if they're of Syrian origin, but there are terrorist groups from northern Syria that are being sent in by Turkey, as well as from Pakistan. I know that Israel currently is selling weapons to Azerbaijan. So a lot's been going on, and that's just what I wanted to talk about. Weirdly enough, this video is titled A Message to Black Lives Matter, Conservatives and Classical Liberals, or Moderates, or whatever they go by these days. I don't know. There's a reason that I want to talk about Armenia to these groups in particular in no apparent order. So I guess I'll start with Black Lives Matter. My question for you guys, and I'd like to start off by saying Black lives do matter. Black lives do matter. I've been, personally at least, I've been both in support of that message, and at the same time, I've been critical in areas where it's affected other people outside of your message. And I don't think that's everybody, right? I think for the most part, people are being peaceful, and two things can be true at the same time, right? People can be peaceful and there could be belligerence among them, just like with the cops, good cops, bad cops. But any good cop that defends a bad cop isn't a good cop. Same thing with protesters. Any good protester, peaceful protester that protects violent protesters is not a peaceful protester. I don't want to get into that though. The reason why I'm bringing this up, and this is extremely important, is because I've felt like time and time again, smaller and smaller ethnic groups like Armenians, Greek people, other whatever minorities there are in this country, Romanians, I know that's Eastern European, you guys don't really care. Essentially, our messages get drowned out in the mire of the American scene. What has really been bothering me as of recently is that this issue is not being covered enough. Armenians around the country have been leading protests in various cities that they either inhabit or have made out to, like Washington, D.C., and they have managed to get local news stations to cover the events going on at Nagorno-Karabakh, but they haven't reached the wider culture of America. We haven't reached the wider culture in America. We haven't broken into those social spheres to get the news out there, and I don't think that's fair. I honestly don't think it's fair, and I don't think this issue is being talked about enough, especially by Black Lives Matter, let's say. And here's the thing. I believe that you guys, as far as I know, I believe that you guys are really into your cause. You actually do believe in helping, let's say, the downtrodden, the oppressed minorities of America. And the message I've heard a lot is all lives don't matter until Black lives matter, because Black lives don't matter. Black lives are part of all lives. So that means all lives don't matter. So Black lives need to matter for all lives to matter, as well as all lives do matter. But right now, the ones that we need to focus on are Black lives, because they're the ones going through something really difficult right now. And that's just what I wanted to say. For those people in this country that love social justice and love supporting the downtrodden, the beaten, I think you guys are missing the point here. You're missing the most important demographic of all. And I'm not just going to say Armenians. I'm really not. It's going to be the people that you never hear about. I mean, you never hear about us, do you? You will never hear about us. The issues of Armenian people and politically insignificant ethnic minorities in this country is not popular. It's weird, that to say that, but it's not popular to support those communities like it is to support, Black communities. We don't have, let's say, we don't have white allies. That's a term, I've heard being thrown around all the time. White allies. You have millions and millions of Americans that identify as white, let's say, in droves coming and supporting and uplifting your community. We don't have that. And I'm not saying we should, but we don't. We really don't have that kind of support on a cultural, almost like a systemic level. We don't have that. We don't have people talking about us. I can imagine like in the 1930s or 1940s, 50s, it would have been really hard to talk about issues of, regarding African Americans because it wasn't popular more than any other time period. Then they were definitely worse off than they are today. At least today you have the privilege of being discussed, right? Of being uplifted in this country. We don't have that. We don't have any of that. And, I'm not going to knock you guys for obtaining that. Great, wonderful. You've convinced a whole bunch of people in this country to help you guys, props to you. I'm not going to, if Armenians manage to do that somehow, that would be great for us, All I'm saying is don't forget about us. And a lot of people are wondering, yeah, but this isn't an American issue. You know, we have COVID we need to worry about. We have our lives that we're worried about, you know, our health, our election. This is not an American issue. And to that, I would say it absolutely is. Absolutely. I promise you, it absolutely is. Right now, all throughout the Middle East, you have American taxpayer aid going out to a whole bunch of different Middle Eastern countries, a whole bunch of countries in, you know, the Caucasus, by the way. That's where the term Caucasian comes from. I don't know if you know. In my opinion, that's, you know, it's kind of racist to label Europeans Caucasian, not for the purpose of offending the Europeans, but the people from the Caucasus don't want people not from the Caucasus to be called Caucasian. So I wouldn't say people doing that are racist. They don't know, but definitely you shouldn't label European descended people as Caucasian. I think that practice is racist. I don't think the people doing it know, and I don't think they are racist. But yeah, the Caucasian region, the Middle East, Asia Minor. So these places, Central Asia, constantly receive aid from the US. You have, I think in 2016, you had $3.1 billion being given to Israel in aid for the purposes of, I think, security for the nation, for military efforts, protection. You had Azerbaijan, the same thing. They've received hundreds of millions recently over the past few years for that same purpose. When is Azerbaijan being attacked? Why do they need money for their military? That doesn't make sense. Then you have Turkey. Turkey's getting hundreds of millions from the US. 55 million in 2016. You had also in 2016, you had Ukraine getting over $500 million. You had Pakistan getting $250 million. And these countries have all been aiding to one degree or another Azerbaijan in fighting the people of Artsakh. Turkey currently it's been proven. No country is denying this, but Turkey and Azerbaijan, they have been sending to Azerbaijan. They've been sending Syrian mercenaries that have been either ISIS members, various different groups have been sent over from the anti-Assad, I believe, attacks happening in Assyria, northern Assyria. And those people have been sent over now to fight against Artsakh. And you have Israel selling arms to Azerbaijan. I have no problem personally with Israel. I don't know why they would be doing these things. So the point is, American money is going to those regions, either for disaster relief or for one purpose or another. Turkey is a NATO ally with the US and I think the biggest one that we have in the region as far as Eastern Anatolia and Asia Minor is considered. And we have, I think, 2 military bases over there. So we have obligations with Turkey. Let me pose it this way. The thing that Armenians are completely worried about right now is the past. And why does the past matter? Well, in the past, there's actually been a numerous amount of massacres against the Armenian people by the Turkish Ottoman government, as well as the Young Turks, which was the changing kind of regimes when Turkey kind of started to become a democracy. But from 1894 until like 1921-ish, you know, because the genocide happened in 1915, there was a genocide, you know, where 1.5 million Armenians died. I think like 750,000, was it Greeks or Assyrians died, and there's like 350,000 Greeks or Assyrians. I can't remember. So one had whatever. So many people died. In 1894 to 1896, something like 300,000 people also died, Armenians, as well as, again, Greeks and Assyrians, like the ancient Assyrian Empire. Those people still exist today, you know? I don't think they like to go by it, but they're Aramaic-speaking people, still speaking the language that, you know, Jesus would have spoke back in 2,000 years ago. Obviously a modern variant of that, but essentially, Armenians have a long history with Turkic peoples in the region, being the Ottoman Turks, so Turkey today, and as well as Azeri Turks. And imagine if in America you had slavery, right? You had slavery against the African American population in America. Imagine if, to this day, America denied that ever happened. Just imagine that, right? That's what Armenians are facing. There was a genocide, and not only do they not acknowledge it, they actively deny it. They specifically said it didn't happen, as well as Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan specifically says that didn't happen, that there was no genocide against our people, where there was an overwhelming wealth of proof for this. The Armenians didn't just magically disappear from the region. We didn't stop making babies either. I can assure you that, you know. Armenians have huge families, at least the ones I know. So the Armenians that are now gone from the region were pushed out, either by war or massacres, genocide. You had the Oghuz Turks. I believe they had the Seljuk Turkic Empire. And around 1180, their empire expanded and reached the region of Azerbaijan, well, Azeri, we'll say, not Azerbaijan, because that didn't exist until What was it, 1918, 1921? So those Seljuk Turks over time became the Azeri Turks, and as well as Ottoman Turks, because that empire also popped up. But until, for thousands and thousands, several thousands of years, Armenians have been living in that region, in the Armenian highlands and the Armenian lowlands, the Armenian plateau. That had been our home for millennia, countless millennia. We don't even know how far back it goes, because this was before, they even had writing systems in some cases. We had people living there, since those times. But the region of Artsakh was never the region of Azeri, the Iranian region of Azeri. It was its own region that had Armenians officially as an empire dating back there since like 1st century BC. They've been there for longer though, but since 1st century BC, we had Armenian claims to the land as part of our kingdom. So essentially it was because of the decision made by a person of Georgian descent, let's say, Joseph Stalin, that set up the regions of Armenia and Georgia and Azerbaijan, and he gave parts of Armenia to Azerbaijan. The Nagorno-Karabakh region, he gave it to them as a way to appease the Turkic people, and he gave part of Armenia away to Georgia to appease his people. Not to mention, before that even, Armenians had, after the genocide, had been fighting back and had won back several of the regions that they had before, Ataturk fought back and took it from us, essentially, with the help of the Soviets. People don't realize that. The Armenian region was actually a lot bigger than it is today, and we won back our land. We fought and we won back in 1918, and we would have kept it. But the Soviet Union was hoping to give away part of that land. So the western half of Armenia was given to Turkey in hopes that one day Turkey would merge and become part of the Soviet Union, which it never did. And it kept the eastern half for itself. So we'd already lost land to the west, and then we lost land to the east. But Armenians weren't living in Turkey anymore, but they were still living in Nagorno-Karabakh. They're still living there. They never left. When the Soviet Union was starting to collapse, Azerbaijan, I think, declared independence before Armenia did from the Soviet Union. And there was a referendum done in Artsakh, let's say, in Nagorno-Karabakh, and 98% of the population voted to secede. 98% of the population, because of an arbitrary decision of, Joseph Stalin of all people. They weren't going to stay in that region. They wanted to either be autonomous or to merge back with Armenia proper. It didn't seem fit to stay under rule of a different people. And after that, war broke out. They had the Sumgait programs, the Baku programs. There was another program where they pushed out the Armenian populations as well as massacred them out of the cities they were living in droves. So we don't want a repeat of that. We don't want to be ruled by a people that deny the genocide even happened. Imagine living in an America where we don't have the 8,000 to 11,000, I think something like that, KKK members that we have today. Imagine if it was like the old days where there was millions, where it's like, I think 13% or like, was it 3% of the country? I can't remember, was KKK. Imagine if we lived in those times still. And imagine if they denied slavery ever happened. Imagine if they denied the killing of Native Americans. Imagine if you were any one of these minorities. Would you volunteer to stay with that regime? You wouldn't. You wouldn't. You would want to secede. You'd want to gain independence. And by the way, it's slightly different because that region had been ours, and we never stopped living there. So we wanted our independence back, and we voted for it. And the results of that vote were not honored. So that's my message to Black Lives Matter is one of the things that Black Lives Matter in this country are worried about for their people. And listen, two things can be true at the same time, right? Blacks can suffer in this country and Armenians can be suffering overseas. Those don't go against each other. Two things can be true. But understand this, while Armenian and Black people in this country are equally important as one another, no person is more important than the other, right? Our issues are not equal. It doesn't even come close. You have hundreds of people. Well, if you include the Azeris too, you have thousands of people that have already died in just this conflict alone. In the past 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, you have more people, more Armenians dying in 2 weeks than you do, you count all the unarmed black men that have been shot since the Rodney King riots. You have more Armenians dead in 2 weeks. And by the way, we're very small people. There's 150,000 people in the Republic of Artsakh. There's only 3 million in Armenia proper. We're a small people. That's a huge portion of our population. Hundreds of us have died. I pay taxes in this country. The taxes that I pay go to killing my people overseas. Yeah. Well, it's one of our own killing one of our own. I get that. An officer killing George Floyd. There's a name to that. There's a face to that. Joseph Stalin was quoted as saying, death of one man is a tragedy. The death of millions is a statistic. Please don't let my people become a statistic again. All those nameless people, faceless people that you don't know or care about as of yet. The taxes that we as Armenians pay in this country go to killing our family back home. Imagine that. I'm so unprivileged that every day, and this is just the small end of it, every day I have to worry about my people and my family back home dying. That's a huge thing that African Americans in this country are worried about, is every day that I step outside, I have to worry about me or my family being shot by a police officer. It happens. It happens, but it doesn't happen that often. Not in the same numbers. And again, two things can be true. It happens there and it happens over there, right? Two things can be true at the same time. I have people that I know in my friends list right now that are terribly consistent. They've offered support for both Black Lives Matter and Artsakh today. I've seen it all over Facebook, and I know that they do this because they actually care, because they actually believe in their cause, because they are actually trying to help the downtrodden. And I'm not worried. Should anything happen to any other race, I know they would be on it in a heartbeat. I just want this to reach the broader populations, the same way that your message has reached us. I mean, there's no American in this country, no man, woman, child, baby, or dog that hasn't heard about Black Lives Matter. I don't know a single person, at least personally, I don't know a single person that doesn't believe in police reform, either Republican or Democrat or other. I don't know a single person. I can't think of one that doesn't believe at least in police reform. If we're not talking just about Black lives in this country, just police reform to help any life that's being affected, any community that's being affected by police brutality. I don't know a single one. I don't know why these issues aren't being resolved, and that's frustrating. I think there's a lot of infighting happening. That could be the cause of it. Right now, you have, actually, I'm going to look this up. Right now, you have the grandchildren of genocide perpetrators killing the grandchildren of genocide survivors with weapons supplied by the children of Holocaust survivors. Let that sink in. It's insane. Did you know the US still doesn't acknowledge, as far as, nationwide, no president has acknowledged the Armenian genocide while in office. The US has not acknowledged it. Turkey's a bad ally. One way or another, it's a band-aid that you just got to rip off. You have to get rid of Turkey as a NATO ally. It has to happen. You can't push this off. You can't delay this. Armenians have a saying, and this is kind of crude, but you can't bury shit with snow. When the snow melts, the shit comes up again. You can't bury something underneath a rug. It won't stay hidden forever. In the 1850s, France and England sided with Turkey in the Crimean War against Russia and the Tsarist Empire. And well, after that, literally the next wars after that, they were on the side against Turkey. They literally built up the enemy that they would have to fight later, as well as enable them to become big enough to one day commit the horrendous acts that they did. All the genocides, all the massacres that happened was all because of England and France supporting Turkey in the Crimean War. Russia wanted to control all trade in the Black Sea. They could have just said, hey, Russia, if you let us have some trade going on, ships in the Black Sea, we will side with you. We won't side with Turkey. You give us a little bit of trade opportunity, we'll side with you. It doesn't go away. You can't side with people that... It's a mistake. Being an ally with Turkey is a mistake. Next, I want to address conservatives in this country. Here's one. Daily Wire. You have an Armenian writer, I believe, working for you. Why aren't you talking about this? I know last year you did an article and it covered this issue between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Why aren't you talking about it now? Why won't you do it? Conservatives, Kayleigh McEnany, the White House press secretary, thank you, first of all, for mentioning the Armenian genocide monument that was desecrated during the Black Lives Matter protests in Denver. Again, another example of politically insignificant minorities' voices being drowned out by politically significant minorities in this country. Two things can be true at the same time, You don't have to knock one down for the sake of the other. But in any case, thank you for calling that out. Why hasn't there been anything on the Armenian genocide? You mentioned it right there. You mentioned the Armenian genocide. Why hasn't anything been said from Trump in regards to the Armenian genocide? Why? Conservatives, you love to bash, I think, a lot of liberals, a lot of, I think, pro-Erdogan people over denying the Armenian genocide. Oh, you love nailing people as Armenian genocide deniers. Why aren't you talking about this right now? Why won't you just do it? I can't say the number of interviews that I've seen Nikol Pashinyan, the Prime Minister of Armenia, do, as well as other Armenian spokespeople, in which there is a person interviewing them, and it sounds like that person has a script. Exact same issues raised, exact same issues. It's like it's been written out for them, basically. Every time that the interviewer says the territory of Nagorno-Karabakh is actually part of, it's internationally recognized as being part of Azerbaijan. And Nikol Pashinyan or someone else would say, oh, but that region has been inhabited by Armenians for thousands of years. And they say, well, we don't have time. We don't have time to, and this will be American reporters or British reporters too. By the way, you guys aren't journalists. If you guys are footing someone else's cause and you're being paid, you guys are activists, or you guys are like mercenaries. You're just hired hands. You're not a journalist. If you're reading what Turkey told you to read, you're not a journalist. I won't say what you are. I would say some horrible things, but they would say, oh, we don't, they'll do a rhetorical tactic. We don't have time to talk about thousands of years of history. We don't have the time to discuss thousands of years, thousands. We're only talking about what is happening today. It doesn't take thousands of years to talk about thousands of years of history. It takes a few minutes or a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds to summarize what's happened. And pretty much Nicole already said what history that was relevant, that Armenians had been there in 1st BC. He wasn't going to say more than that. We don't have time to discuss it. No, you're disregarding his point. You're completely disregarding his point using a rhetorical tactic. And this is American journalists, and I see. And they will also do things like, oh, both sides need to stop fighting. Both sides need to stop fighting. We had a ceasefire. Armenia stopped fighting. Guess what? The other side didn't. Both sides don't need to stop fighting. Azerbaijan needs to stop attacking Artsakh. They think simply by us being there, we're attacking them. They literally think that. There's a famous video of one of their elementary schools, or it was a kindergarten, where they're teaching their kids to see Armenians as their enemy. They have an alternate version of history in which they've always been there for thousands of years, erasing what we as Armenians contributed, completely erasing it. They destroy our churches. They destroy our monuments. How do you negotiate with the people that don't want to negotiate? They don't want to do it. What you're asking for us is suicide. It won't happen. Even when we do, ceasefire, nothing happened. We're still being attacked. Immediately, they broke the ceasefire agreement. Everything, when the agreement was agreed upon, they kept firing at us and using illegal cluster bombs that have never been used before. But the world governments all around the world have said that this is a war crime. And they kept bombing us up until the ceasefire agreement started. And immediately when it did start, they still hit us. There is no negotiation. They don't respect the sovereignty of Artsakh. What needs to happen in this country is you need sanctions for Turkey. You need sanctions for Azerbaijan. Stop giving them aid. Just stop doing it. Stop being their ally. They're not yours. You're going to build them up to become monsters one day. If you want to build them up when they have a promising regime, or not even, let's not even say regime, when they have a promising democracy in place that doesn't censor journalists, that doesn't censor people, that doesn't have a litany of human rights violations under their belt, as well as denial of genocide. Save it for then. As far as other countries like Israel, who get money from the US for aid for purposes of security, I know the state of Israel right now is very contested. Not every government in the Middle East acknowledges that Israel is a country. But here's the thing. Money is being used outside of the purposes of security for Israel. It's being used to sell weapons to Azerbaijan. You had terms. You have terms for why the aid is being given. You have to follow those terms. We have to pressure them into saying, hey, listen, I get you need this money. You can have it. But if you don't use it the way you asked for, we're going to have to take it back. We're going to have to cut money. If you don't listen, it's already hard enough getting people within our borders to use money properly and not fall into corruption. It's next to impossible to get another country that you're just giving money to be like, okay, use it this way. Okay, I'll use it that way. No, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. And yet that's what needs to happen. That's what needs to happen. Israel needs to stop funding terrorists. Stop selling weapons to people that are just massacring a native population like the Armenians. That's what needs to happen. So yeah, classical liberals. Oh, I didn't even get to that, did I? Tim Pool, why aren't you talking about this? You've always talked about Erdogan and his horrible regime. I've seen you mention the Armenian genocide. Tim Pool, why are you not talking about this? Sargon of Akkad, I know that you talk about Turkey all the time. Any video related to Turkey, by the way, I've seen it. You talk about Turkey and Erdogan all the time. Why, and the genocide, why haven't you talked about this? Why? Why is the entire classical liberal sphere quiet about this? If anyone should be talking about it, it's you, right? The alternative media that you guys want to become the new media, you guys should be talking about it. I don't care at this point. I don't care what your allegiance is. Democrats, Republicans, if you're listening, Armenians are going to be voting on or before November 3rd. And time again, we've had presidents say, oh yeah, Armenian genocide's real. And then they get into office and they don't say anything. You need to say something now. You need to say something now. There are millions of Armenians in this country, over a million, I can guarantee it. And there are many millions that also support us. We have a lot of support from Russian people, Slavic peoples, a lot of support from various different Orthodox peoples, the Assyrians, in this country, the Greeks. All those people care about this issue because Turkey affects them too. It affects them, Why? Why? After all this time, why is Azerbaijan attacking Armenia again? As far as ground war goes, they're losing to us in number. As far as keeping this minimal, small conflict, Armenians are better at it. Armenians are better at strategy You know, we have a smaller population, but we're making do with what we have. We're better at it. If things keep up as they are, we're winning. But that's just the thing, isn't it? Why would they keep fighting the way that they're fighting if they see that they're losing? Why haven't they stopped? It's a net loss for them. Or is it? You know, the writing is on the wall at this point. Anything can happen. Anything. Pressure needs to be done to make them stop. These people deny the genocide, and we don't know what they are capable of or have in mind. You know, in best case scenario, they stop somehow, and they just take the L. All those lives lost for no reason. They're just gonna, you know. In worst case, there will be a repeat of what happened in 1915 with the genocide. People die either case. So there's no good outcome here, essentially. It's either a small bad thing that happens or a catastrophic bad thing that happens. People in this country fear, I don't know, white supremacy, the KKK. Their numbers are down. I don't know if you knew this. Their numbers are actually down. They're openly racist, I believe, a lot of them. They don't hide, you know. They don't deny the history that happened in this country. They're okay with it. But Turkey and Azerbaijan are bigger than ever, not land-wise, but population-wise, and they do not acknowledge the past. They don't. And they are looking towards expanding. They didn't lose numbers like the KKK and white supremacists did in America. They didn't lose their numbers. They gained numbers. For us, if for you that threat of white supremacy and the KKK is real for you, and I'm not going to deny what is and isn't real for you. If that is real for you, then what of the Armenian people? How many 10, 100-fold real is this for us? All the world needs to do is wipe their hands clean and step away from this, and something bad's going to happen. Armenian lives matter. Please don't wait for my people to become a statistic again just to talk about us either. Fight, tell your politicians, organize, donate, push for sanctions. You could go to armeniafund.org, armeniafund.org. You can donate there to help Armenians. You can set your Amazon Smiles donation that donates like 0.5% of all your purchases on Amazon. You know, it's on them. They'll send to whatever charity of your choice. You could have it set already to Armenia Fund. There's so many ways you could help. There's so much news out there. You only need to be in tune to it. Hopefully below I'll try to put a few different Facebook and Instagram channels you can follow to keep up on the news, various websites that you could donate to. I'm going to try to make more videos if I can. I don't know if this is the type of thing that I'm good at or can do. It's not my usual thing, I'll be honest. But you could subscribe here if you'd like. But please don't be quiet about this issue because I can't afford to be. Every day I have to live with the reality that, you know, people back home could be dying, could face complete annihilation, and nobody wants to talk about it. Because it's not popular. That's what it means to be not privileged. But hopefully it doesn't stay that way. Thank you if you managed to get through this far. Goodness, this must have been, I don't know how long this video is going to be. But for me, it's been, believe me, it's been a long time trying to record this thing. But if you stuck through to the end, thank you. Genuinely. So yeah, I guess I'll see you guys later. Peace.